guys, good morning. Welcome back to my garden. My name is Kira. If you're new here, feel free to call me Q. We are gardening in California in zone 9B. So we have a fair amount of time in our growing season still. And what we've been working on is clearing out a lot of the garden, just cleaning it up because it got away from us. It got a little wild and crazy. So we've been cleaning up a lot of stuff, and we're starting to plant a few things. Mostly we are starting seeds inside, but I wanted to take you on a tour of what our garden looks like. This is going to be like mid-September, and yeah, just join me in our garden. One other thing, I am trying out a new microphone, so let me know how the sound sounds to you. I got a comment that it's hard to hear me sometimes, and so let me know if the volume level's okay too. I can kind of tweak that in editing a little bit, but yeah, let me know how this sounds, if it's better. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is come over here to our patio. Here's our strawberry green stalk. Not much to report here. It's still just kind of kicking, which I'm really happy about. This thing has had a rough season, but it's starting to look okay. I still haven't cleaned it out yet. My plan for the winter is to just try and keep this alive. And then I might put some flowers in kind of the empty pockets until we can put more strawberries in this in spring. But I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll put like some calendula or pansies or something like that. That'll do okay over our winter time because we have a pretty mild winter, just to kind of give it some color and stuff like that. I might also just put some herbs or something like that in it. So I haven't fully decided, but I do want to kind of fill up those empty pockets here. But I do like the green stalks overall. It's mostly user error on why they're not doing great, but overall I really do like the product. And then here's a look at our blackberry hedge. And so it definitely end of season for this. There's no more berries on it, so it's just resting. Over the winter we'll kind of cut this whole thing down, or we'll cut some of the canes down and just prune it for the next season. But we got a lot of really good fruit off of this. We also have it growing all the way out here, and off of a suggestion that I got in the comments, we also just planted some of it in buckets to see if we could just get some more shoots or more starts, and then we'll put those along the fence line too. So thank you to the person that suggested doing this and burying these to create more blackberry plants, because we wanted to do that anyway. And then here is our second green stalk. There's been nothing in it for a really long time here, and so we're going to plant that out pretty soon with just more cool weather stuff. Here is our herb bed right off the side of our house. In here, most of the stuff is, you know, not doing great, but it's okay. We have some sage in here that's starting to look a little bad. We have some thyme in the corner here. These are old green onions that we're gonna take out. We've been letting them seed up. So you can see there, those little black things are the green onion seeds. So we've been waiting for those. And then in the back there, we have some rosemary, and then I'll be planting more cilantro in here once it gets a little bit cooler, but that's done pretty well. And then all of the buckets that we had around here were mostly empty. We had some potatoes in there, and we got like a really small potato harvest out of them. And that was a mint. And it looks like it's dead now because we forgot to water it. I have just the worst luck with mint. Everyone says it's really easy to grow mint and it grows like crazy. Mine has died every year that I've tried. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, you know, for that one, I'm just not watering it, but I've killed mint every year, so I'm still working on that. If you have suggestions on what to do about it, let me know in the comments below, because I can't keep mint alive. Ours never does anything really. I would love to be able to make tea from it, but we've just never gotten that far. So anyway, behind me here we have our apricot tree, and then we have a peach tree. They're both into the season. They're just hanging out. They didn't do too well this year. The apricot tree was relatively healthy, but it did get infested with aphids at a certain point, and there wasn't really any fruit off of it. I think we got one apricot. And then for the peach tree, it got a leaf curl. So we got a lot of fruit off of it, but it just didn't do as well as it could have. So we are going to be babying those, well, as much as we can baby anything right now with a real baby on our hands. But we're going to be trying to take care of those over the winter time and see if we can kind of rehab them a little bit. And then right next to those, we have our grape arch. We haven't harvested that many grapes off of it. Andrew bought a an archery, what is that called? Target. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word target. I love that store. So anyway, he brought an archery target and he's been practicing a little bit out here instead of going to the range. But yeah, there's still a lot of grapes in here. A lot of them are raisins at this point. There's still some good stuff. You can see there was a lot of fruit that we just never got to. It looks like some pretty good ones. That might still be good up there, but for the most part, it just kind of got away from us, and you know, it happens. Next up is some of our citrus. This is the tree that we rehabbed this year. We got one surprise piece of fruit off of it last year, and we had no idea what it was all of last year. So we tried to rehab it, and it looks like it's been really successful. The fruit here is getting to be a really good size, which is really exciting. And we think what we're going to do is actually thin it out a little bit more, just because there's a lot of fruit on here, and we want to get this tree as healthy as possible. And so we're going to thin this out even more than this, but we're really happy with this because there was, I mean, like I said, there was nothing on this last year. And then right next to it, we have our clementine tree, which, oh, that's a spider web. I don't want to go over there. The fruit is starting to get a little bit bigger. It's still really small. So this tree hasn't done as well as it did last year, but we're just kind of letting it coast. Okay, so now this is where things are starting to change from the last tour that we had. Like I said, we're doing a lot of cleanup. We haven't caught up with the cleanup yet. Mostly just focusing on clearing out the beds so that we can kind of like turn them over. But I'm in the back of our garden now, so let me show you the first thing that we've just been kind of working on. So first thing in this garden, in the back of our long 16-foot beds, we have this tomato trellis right here. We had a bunch of Amish paste tomatoes on here, and then there's cherry tomatoes in the middle, and then down at the end there were Roma tomatoes. Okay, so now I'm back behind it, and you can see we cleared out all of the Amish paste tomatoes down here. They were completely done. I'm going to be clearing off the last few cherry tomatoes on here today, and then we'll probably be taking these plants down in the next couple days. We do have, you can see here, there's a lot more green fruit here, but we're kind of okay with just ending the season here. You see there's more here, just because we really want to tarp all of this area and kill the grass, and it'll be a lot easier to do that if we can, you know, just take down this trellis. The main reason why we're okay with taking it down too is we got a ton of cherry tomatoes already in the season, and we have been dehydrating them and so turning them into kind of like sun-dried tomatoes, and they are so good. So we've been eating them just as snacks, but we've also been putting them on pizza. And we had a party the other week, and we had people over and we made them pizza, and they loved it so much that we ended up giving them a jar of them to just take home. So we're really happy with what happened with the cherry tomatoes this year, and we feel like we've had our fill. All right, so now onto the beds. So we have 3 4x16-foot beds here, and these are the main ones that I've been working on cleaning out in the last couple weeks. Now all that's left really is all of the pepper plants that were hidden under a gigantic zucchini here, and I went ahead the other day and planted a new yellow squash there. So hopefully we'll be able to get something by the end of the season, but it really was just a lot of cleaning up. There's a butternut squash that I left here that never got a chance because it came in a lot smaller and after everything else, so it was just competing with everything else before. But now it has room to grow, so we're going to see if we get anything off of that. And then here we have 3 okra plants. So we had 4. You can see there's a hole right there. I took that one out yesterday just because it had broken and fallen over. And so I took it out, and we still have 3 here, which this is the healthiest we've ever had okra. I say this is the healthiest we've ever had okra, but there's still, you know, there's ants on here, there's some aphids on here, but usually it's way worse than this, especially by this time of year. So you can see also on all of these okra plants, the pods are gigantic. They completely got away from us. We just let them go. We had very limited time and very limited energy to harvest things. So at a certain point, we just heavily prioritized, and we went with the tomatoes and peppers as first priority. And then like beans and things like that. And lately now I'm prioritizing cleanup. So the okra has definitely gotten away from us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the pods as is on 2 of these plants. And then on one of them, I'm going to take all the big pots off to see if we could get the plant to essentially start over and think, hey, my job's not done. I'm going to make some more okra, and then see if we can get back on the schedule of harvesting them then. Or I might do that with 2 plants, because honestly, we don't need that many pods for seed saving. So yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll leave 1 plant, and then I'll clean up 2 of them and take all the pods off of 2 of them, and see if we can kind of like restart our okra game here. Let me flip this around so you can see kind of like what the plants are looking like as far as pest pressure right now. Okay, so you can see on that leaf there's a ton of aphids and ants. And what we found out is ants actually farm aphids, and they eat the kind of like milk that they secrete. It's really gross. But so this thing is covered in aphids. We've also seen ladybugs on them. But for right now, this is just kind of what happens with okra for us. But we're still getting really pretty flowers. So the plant itself is kind of yucky, but I normally wear gloves to harvest anyway, but then you get things like that. Underneath the okra, I cleaned up a ton of grass in here. It was just, the grass was crazy. It was all like 3 feet long and it was nuts. But I found some pepper plants under here. There was also the melons that were, or the cucumbers that were growing on that side. They had kind of completely taken over this way. And so I cleared all that out. Some of the fruit had gone bad and was like mushy in the beds. It was really nasty. There's still a little bit of grass in here. You can see I pulled out even the majority of the grass over there, but there's still a little bit because at a certain point I saw 3 gigantic spiders in all this grass in just this section. And so I hit my limit at a certain point, and I was like, you know what? I'm good. The rest of this is going to have to wait for another day because my heart cannot stand to see another spider. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And here's the bed on the other side of the okra. So there's peppers in there, and you know, not much grass. There's a lot less grass in this bed than there was, but still a little bit to clean up. These pods, this pod, oh yeah, sounds hollow like a maraca. That one's ready, so we could actually take the seeds out of this one and they'd be good to plant now. Over here's where I took out another giant zucchini and found some pepper plants and a couple eggplants underneath it. I also took out some of the basil that was over here just because it was falling over and not looking really great. So all of that is ready for us to put some, you know, succession stuff in, short season for just this season, because come fall, we're also going to probably tarp these back beds here just because the grass pressure wasn't so intense. So we're just, you know, using it for right now because we have other things that are in here that are warm season stuff. And then basically once all the warm season stuff is done, we're going to tarp this whole thing. Then I found more pepper plants that were buried. There is a marigold in there. I still need to deadhead and clean up all those, you know, spent blossoms. I need to take those off. And then this I took cucumbers out of, and we're going to plant some new ones in here to see if we can get one more go at them for this season. In this next bed, I took out the cucumbers here, and this is where we had Armenians cucumbers that were really prolific and great. So in cleaning that out, I found this pumpkin. So what I did for this pumpkin is I basically very carefully took all of the leaves. This thing was covered in the Armenian cucumber. So I very carefully took all of the Armenian leaves out of here and kind of like cut around it. And then I had to find the rest of it. So I kind of followed the vine until I found pieces of it at a time and was able to find it all the way down to the ground. So this was a pumpkin that I didn't think actually came up. I didn't think this seed did anything. And I thought it was, you know, it got buried by the Armenian and it just got not enough sun, so it was done. But I'm really happy to see this. I do need to trellis this one because 2 days ago it was actually sitting up here. So I need to give this one a little bit of support, but that is a sugar pie pumpkin and I'm really happy to see it. Then I took the other cucumbers that we had. We had a Parisian gherkin over here, and then found some more pepper plants And I took out, oh, here's the thing. I took out the giant sunflower tree that we had. This thing was massive. It was easily 9 feet tall, but I took the whole thing out, and then I left just this part because I realized that these peppers were kind of using them as support. So I just left the stumps so that they could continue to support the peppers that are growing around it. Then over here, I took out the cucumber that had jumped from this trellis here to that trellis over there, and it had to use kind of the sunflower in the middle as a support to get over there. So I took all of that out too and cleaned this trellis up here. So the only thing that's left on this trellis is these noodle beans that we're letting them dry out so that we can save some seeds from that. But then once we take a couple seeds from this, I'm going to take this whole thing down too. And then I found all of these pepper plants too, which was great. And then I took out a few dead plants here that weren't doing so good just to give the peppers the most space. On the other side here, this was just a lot of grass cleanup. So this whole thing, you couldn't walk down here because we had, from this side, we had a yellow squash that had grown to at least halfway through into the walkway, and the grass was super high. So Andrew came through and weed whacked part of this for me, and then I've just been kind of like cleaning it up. But there was just a ton of grass in the beds. It was really bad. In doing that, we found peppers, more peppers. So this one is a Habanata, which we are so excited to see that we actually still have some of these, and they turn orange. I saw one on one of the other plants. Oh, here we go. So this is a Habanata. It is the sweet version of a habanero. And so they don't have any of the heat, and they are just like really fruity and delicious. We absolutely love them. We grew them for the first time in our old garden a couple years ago, and they are going to be a staple in our garden forever and always. So last year, none of the plants did anything. We didn't get any, and it was really sad. But last year was our throwaway garden. So we don't really count it because we were moving into this house and like all of that. So this year, we planted a lot out here. And I'm really excited to see that some of them survived. I thought, we lost a lot of them because they just got buried in other things. But it looks like a good number of the plants survived. And we're going to take every single habanata that we can get. We love to put these in everything. Like they're just so good in everything. But we put them in cut up in salads. We love putting them in chili. In chili, they're so good because we like chili that's a little bit on the sweeter side, or at least I do. We will put them in everything, and they're one of the things that we love growing the most, and we wait for. We're so excited to get them. So here we have what looks like 3 habanata plants in a row, which I'm so stoked about this. Look at how many fruits are in here. So I'm really happy about what's going on here. And then I did some more grass cleanup over here. We have more pole beans to pick off of here. These pole beans have started to finally do something, which is really great. And then we have straw flowers over here that are looking really beautiful. And what I want to do with these straw flowers is I want to cut a bunch and actually dry them. So I'll cut them, hang them upside down, it seems like is the way that people do it. And then my thinking is that I'll be able to have some sort of bouquet of flowers through the winter time when we're not going to have any other kinds of flowers in the house. So that is my idea, to also bring them in as part of my kind of like autumn decorating for the house. So we'll see how that goes. But that is, I think, what I'm going to do with a lot of those right now. But I definitely love straw flowers, and we'll grow them again. Hey guys, it is evening time now. It's several hours later. So let's pick this up where we left off. So this is the next bed that I cleaned up. There was a huge yellow squash plant here. I took that out, took out a ton of grass, and then planted a zucchini plant here. It looks really sad right now, but our watering system is about to come on, so that'll perk right up. And here we have some Blue Lake pole beans. So these took a while to get going on this side of the garden, but they are producing really nice beans now. And they're pretty uniform and they taste pretty good. Andrew harvested a huge bowl of those pole beans yesterday from another plant that we have, and we still have a ton more out here. So it's been a very good green bean year for us. Next to that trellis, you can see another gaping hole. This is where another yellow squash was. This one was gigantic. This bed is about 4 feet across, and this one went about a foot that way out of the bed and then was completely taking over this pathway here too. So this one was huge. And then I planted another zucchini plant there. Same deal. Looks sad right now, but I'm not too worried about it. And then this is what our first noodle bean trellis looks like right now. So for this trellis, it's completely drying out right now. I haven't taken it out yet just because I wanted to give these a chance to like really dry out. And I mean, they're about there. We want to harvest some beans off of this. And yeah, I mean, they're pretty much done at this point. They're pretty leathery, and it's, oh yeah, I can break these open with just my hand. So I'll actually come out here, harvest some noodle bean seeds, the actual beans off of these, and then I'll clear that trellis off too. So this one is probably an Ajvarski pepper just from the shape of it. They're really sweet, really good, kind of like Italian peppers. We have thoroughly enjoyed those. And then these peppers also have a bunch of flowers on them, which makes me really happy now here that our weather's cooling down a little bit. I'm excited to get more peppers. And then we have found some more Habanata plants down here, which we're really excited about. I trimmed this marigold up and it also was like dug out of the ground. So this one might just be a complete goner, but I wanted to give it another shot. And then down here we have our jalapenos. We like to wait until they are red and harvest them then. These are definitely due for harvest because you can see that one there is cracking. So we need to take these out. But we like to wait until those are red. And then next to it, we have poblanos, which haven't done very well. These are just super small. They're supposed to be way bigger than this. And then there was one that just got away from us, so it turned red. But we harvest these green. They're just really, really tiny. Okay, so now let's head to the back of the garden and look at the pumpkin patch. So this is our little pumpkin patch. We had 3 what are they called? Sugar pie pumpkin plants in here. And so you can see there's a green one right there. And then we actually have some that are ready. There's one right there, one right there, and then there's another one over there that we can actually pick now, which is great. And then farther down, that bigger one, that's a Howden pumpkin. So that's kind of like a jack-o'-lantern carving pumpkin. So there's one there, and then there's another one farther down the fence over there. The pumpkin patch was definitely just kind of an experiment. It's something we put in at the last minute because I really want to be able to grow pumpkins. And this was very successful, so I'm really happy about this. And we have a pumpkin plant in another part of the garden that I'll show you that is just going gangbusters, so I'm really happy about that too. All right, next up on the list of things to take care of is the cut flower experiment in the middle here. So this is 3 4-by-8 foot beds in the middle, and I put a bunch of flowers in here. So we have straw flowers, we have cosmos, there's zinnias over there, and then there was a bunch of stuff that didn't come up, but these were kind of like the main ones. There's snapdragons way in the front. And right now you can see this whole thing is just wild and crazy, and you know, everything's kind of falling over and stuff like that. And here's the cut flower garden from the other angle, from the other side. So we actually planted tomatoes in the front. So there's 3 Roma plants here that we just got a ton of tomatoes off of. These are determinate tomatoes. And then we have over here, these are golden nugget cherry tomatoes, and they've been really good. So we need to come out and harvest the last few off of that. Here's what those look like. You can see they're really good. And then this is what happened to our walkways. So the zinnias have completely fallen over. Nothing has been deadheaded out here in a very long time. You can see the cosmos, they're all dried out and crazy. And then the zinnias now have powdery mildew. If you've never seen it before, that's what powdery mildew looks like. And at this point, I'm going to take all of these zinnias out. It is kind of sad to lose this many zinnias, but I do want to take these out now that, you know, they're clearly diseased. And when we take these out, they're not going to go in our compost pile. They're going to actually go into our green waste. And our city has, you know, a composting program now. And so it'll go in there because they have the huge, you know, industrial piles that'll definitely get hot enough to just kill everything that's in that. But we can't do that in our home composting system. So we're just going to get it off the property. But with other things, we are saving as much as we can for our own composting pile. But anything that's like diseased or not healthy, we are just, you know, taking off the property and putting in green waste. So yeah, you can see these zinnias are pretty sad looking. I could save some seeds from some of these, but I still have a lot of seeds, so I'm okay not doing that this year. But here's the sun gold cherry tomatoes. These have lasted just a really long time. These started fruiting for us, I think in May, something like that. They were the first tomatoes we got, and we're still getting them even though they're supposed to be a determinate variety. So this has been really awesome. And then over here you can see we have more zinnias that kind of fell into the walkway. This amaranth is completely down. The snapdragons kind of made a comeback in here, but none of them look very good. So I'm just gonna mow all those down, and those I want to see if I can get another wave off of them when it cools down. So I think what I'm gonna try to do is just kind of top them all, just kind of like mow them and see what happens. One cool thing I noticed in the flower garden, or the cut flower garden yesterday, is this dahlia is the one dahlia in the cut flower experiment that actually came up. So you can see this one next to it never got any flowers. This one is sick, so it looks like it has the powdery mildew and maybe some bugs on it too, but we actually got flowers off of these. So, you know, it was definitely an experiment. I've never grown dahlias before, especially from seeds, and I'm overall happy with this because now I know what will happen and I can try again next year. Our watering system just turned on, so it is now watering the perimeter, and then it'll water the beds. And we have it on kind of like 3 different little systems, and so yeah, everything is getting watered without me having to do it, which is fantastic. So in the back of the garden again, you can see my shadow. Hi. But this is the back of our Blue Lake pole bean arch, which it is majestic and lovely and really full. This is where Andrew picked a ton of beans off of yesterday, and there's parts of it that he can't even reach in the middle here because we have this gigantic zucchini plant at the bottom. But this is done so well. I've been obsessed with this, and I'm really happy with how it's gone this season. We've never grown green beans really successfully at all, and so I'm really happy with this. And at the base of the green bean arch, we have some pepper plants here. We have a little marigold that needs to be deadheaded. And then this is another zucchini plant that we're going to be taking out. So it's massive. The fruit is massive. Like, all of that is gigantic. And so none of it is anything that we want. So we're going to take all of this out and put it in the compost because this plant is still healthy. So this we can use for our compost. And next to that, we have some pepper plants sprinkled in here. And then this is where the 2 Tomatillo plants took over. So there were 2 itty bitty plants. They were like this big when I put them in. And you can see there's now one gigantic Tomatillo plant. It goes all the way out the walkway over here. They go all the way over that way. And then they actually started growing up this trellis in front of them and then to the other side, and they are now blocking the aisleway for those beds over there. So it's only 2 little plants and it's massive. So we're excited to actually make some salsa from these. So far with these tomatillos, all we've been doing is harvesting them, like collecting them when they get bigger than the little papers that they're in. So we've been harvesting them, washing them off because they're kind of like sticky, which is weird, but washing them off and then freezing them. And we haven't done anything else with them yet. We are just putting them all in the freezer until we get enough where we can make some salsa verde out of them. So we are really looking forward to that. There's a ton of tomatillos out here, but they've just been kind of ripening a few at a time. And I know since we haven't harvested these in a while, there's a lot in there. So we're going to have to do something with that for sure. And then kind of taken over by the tomatillos, we had some bush beans growing in here. So it's just kind of a trio mix of a green, blue lake, pole bean, a purple one, and a yellow wax bean. So those have been growing in here. We have harvested a lot out of that, and there's still more to come. And then we have another pepper plant back here. Let's see, it kind of looks like it's a tomatillo, but this is a sweet bonnet. It is the sweet non-spicy version of a Scotch bonnet. So when we tried these, they are a little bit of spicy. The one we had at least had a little bit of heat by the seeds, but they're pretty good. We probably won't grow them again, but they're pretty good. And we have some more pepper plants buried in here. And then this is 4 of our, what are they, cherry tomato. These are super sweet 100 cherry tomato plants. We had these trellised up on this string, and the plants got so heavy because I stopped pruning them at a certain point and they just fell over. So we're just leaving them like this for right now. We're still getting a few cherries off of them, but we're kind of leaving it until either the plant gets sick or we're ready to take this out for compost. But these cherries are really, really good. So now we're on the edge of that bed, and in between these two beds, which our pathways are kind of small, they're probably like 2.5, 3 feet. We have a zinnia that fell over. This is a Senora zinnia. And then we have, it looks like there's a pumpkin plant that's growing in here. These are little sugar pie pumpkins. And then we also have the tomatillos that are all kind of growing in one spot. And I'll need to come in here and clean this up and just kind of like put things in their spot again. But I kind of like when stuff like this happens. I think it's really cool what nature just does without us. But we will need to be able to actually just, you know, walk through here and make sure that we're not wasting things. Look at those zinnias. They're so pretty. And then up on the top of this trellis, we have the pumpkin plant. So we have a few more sugar pie pumpkins growing up here. So there's 3 little guys up there, and that's really, really fun, really happy. So here is that zinnia, and we're right on the other side of those tomatillos. And they go all the way through here. Kind of majestic, kind of crazy. It's how I like to garden. And then now we are underneath the not noodle bean. Well, it's half noodle bean. We're underneath the bean trellis. So like I said, we've harvested just a ton of beans, string beans off of this side. And then the other side, we had noodle beans hanging in the front. And then we did more whole beans on this side of the trellis. So really happy with all of this. One thing that we decided is we want to do more pole beans next year and less noodle beans. So I definitely want to have some noodle beans for the aesthetic. I love just the way they look hanging down. I think it's just so romantic looking, but we don't need that many noodle beans. And so I'm just going to leave these for now, but next year we're going to try to have more pole beans and also more other things like the butternut squash. We didn't get any of that this year, and so we're going to kind of like focus on that more. Here's a bug that I'm pretty sure is bad news, but I need to look it up and see exactly what it is. But I've seen a lot of these on our trellising stuff. And down here at the bottom, we have more pepper plants. Let's see, this one is, I think, an Edgevarsky. Yeah, that looks kind of like an Edgevarsky. Oh yeah, so we have, this is an Edgevarsky pepper plant, and then I took out an amaranth here. This is my one leek that survived from over the winter, and oh, here it is. I was saving it because this has flowered. I found this like the other day, and so I want to see if I can get some seeds off of this, and hopefully we'll get stronger leeks now that it's accommodated or acclimated to our garden. And then we have more pepper plants down here. Let's see what we got. Oh yes, more Habanatas. Yes, this is awesome. Around the bend here, I took out another squash plant. So there's a gap there. I don't know what I'm going to put there yet. We'll see. And Then I took out a watermelon here that was just done. It gave us our last watermelon. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And then we have a dahlia here that didn't flower. And this is honey nut squash. So if you've never had honey nut, it's kind of like a butternut, but smaller and sweeter. And we really like these because they work really well for trellises. You don't have to hammock them or anything. You don't have to support them because they're so small. And this one's basically ready, so I'll take those off too. And then there's a wee little guy down here. That one's super tiny. They're supposed to be a lot bigger than that. Next up, we have some eggplants. These have done really well. These plants were about an inch tall and not looking great when I put them in. And, you know, they've been kind of happy. So the leaves look good. They haven't been, you know, eaten too bad by anything. So this is pretty good. And I think the flowers on this are really pretty. Let me see if I can tilt this up. Look at that. It's so pretty. I love anything purple, so it's not that hard. And here we have yellow brandywine tomatoes. We got our second flush of them and they're kind of all green at this point, so we're waiting for those to come around. And then next to it is a Hungarian heart. These are really good, but this tomato has just seen better days. I don't think that there's any fruit on it right now. Let's take a look at the other side actually. Yeah, I don't see any fruit on just this one. So this one can actually come out. But one thing we noticed that I did not plant, oh, they're all gone now. Let's see, where are they? These purple flowers, they're like purple and white flowers right here. This is some sort of morning glory, and I didn't plant that. We think that they actually came in the soil. I have no idea how else they would have gotten in the garden because, like I said, I didn't put them there, and it's just the one. But I was excited to show you that. I'm kind of bummed that they're all gone. Let me take one more look and see if I can find anything. Yeah, it looks like they're all gone. All the flowers are done. So I'm actually probably going to pull that out because I've heard that morning glories are really, really invasive and they're basically a weed in a lot of places. I don't know if they're a weed here, but it was pretty. It's just, you know, something that I didn't necessarily put in my garden, and I'm okay if it shows up, but I don't want it to kind of take over and be everywhere. Although maybe I do, because it's purple. So I don't know. We'll see. And then this last bed in the front here, I cleaned up. This was the first bed I cleaned up, so it's looking pretty good. We got some basil here that is starting to flower, so we've been, you know, picking the flowers off, and we've also been making a lot of pesto with that. I started some more basil too to see if I could get some kind of like later season stuff, and we'll see if that grows in time. And then we have a couple Amish paste tomatoes. These are really small. We're just kind of letting them do their thing. We have some zinnias. I'm not sure what this is, just because it came in a mix, like a mixed pack. But I do really like the orange, and then here's a yellow one that also came in that mixed pack. But yeah, those have been really fun. This is the Autumn Beauty Sunflower. You can see it just has a massive amount of heads on it. It's been really great, but it's kind of at the end of the season. And what I'll do is I'll come in here and see if there are any heads in here where the birds haven't eaten all the seeds out of it, and see if I can save some seeds. It looks like, yeah, it looks like here, you know, the birds got most of the seeds, but I have to take a good look and see. This is what they looked like before. It's just really pretty. I want to grow more of these for actual and have them into the fall. Down here we have more eggplants and more pepper plants. They're all doing really well. We have a little amaranth. This one never got really tall, but I actually like that. I think it looks really good over here with, you know, sharing the same kind of height with everything else. This is our biggest basil plant, and it is also flowering, so we need to come in here and kind of pick the flowers off of this again. And then here, this is a dahlia. It doesn't look good either, but this one was the tallest one. So the flowers are really, really tiny, but this one actually got pretty tall. So not bad for growing dahlias for the first time out of a seed packet, a mixed seed packet at that. Here are more Moulin Rouge zinnias. They also have some of the powdery mildew. For these, since it doesn't have a lot, I think what I want to try to do is treat these. So right now, I am reading the book Flower Farmer by Lynn. I cannot say her last name at all, so I'm not going to try from memory, but I'll put it up on the screen. But I'm reading her book now, and it is a book, it's like the go-to book from what I hear about learning how to successfully flower farm. But one of the things that is in the book is she has a bunch of just like organic ways that you can treat powdery mildew in the book. And so I think I'm going to try a couple of those ways on this just to kind of experiment. It might get away from me and I might end up taking these plants out, but if I have the time in the middle of continuing to clean up this garden and continuing to get ready for fall, I do want to try that and see how well it works on one of these plants that, you know, it has the powdery mildew, but it's not too bad. Those other ones, they're goners, so there's no point in even trying. But for something like this, I want to see if it helps or not, and to see if I can like rehab this plant or just at least have it hold on for a little bit longer. Okay, I have multiple neighbors that just started mowing their lawns at the same time. So we're really testing out this new mic. We'll see how the sound for this goes, but I'm gonna test it out. We're on noise cancellation and we're almost done. So let's see how this goes. I'm coming in here with a voiceover just because the sound on this got really bad, worse than the rest of this video. So we tend to have a lot more background noise in the afternoons just because there's more people driving home from work and things like that. But with the lawnmowers and everything, it just got way too bad. So the next thing I'm showing you here are the peppers. So for these peppers here, they're doing pretty well overall. I've been really happy with the pepper harvest that we've gotten. The next thing in the garden is a Roma tomato trellis. So these produced really well this year. In total in our garden, we got over 100 pounds of Roma tomatoes, and most of them came off of these 9 plants that you see here. So at this point, the plants are pretty much done. They're just waiting for us to take them out. And I think what I might do is put some sunflowers in that spot. It's not at all because the sunflowers will need the trellis or anything like that. It's more so because we have planting space there, and I could just easily just pop some seeds in there and just use that soil, that little bed that we created for the rest of this season. And then next to it we have our gigantic pumpkin vine. This is one plant and it's a Howden pumpkin, so it's a jack-o'-lantern carving pumpkin. And it got way bigger than we thought it would, which is pretty amazing. There's also some pretty good sized pumpkins growing in there. So the thing about it is a little too healthy, and so it started to grow into both of our neighbors' yards. It's trying to like go through the fences. It actually did go through the fences, and in the back on one side it's like climbing over bushes and all of that kind of stuff. So we're just letting it go wild and crazy for right now. But in the future, we will need to watch it a little bit more if we put another pumpkin in this area, and just make sure that, you know, we keep it on our side of the fence so that we can stay good neighbors. Okay, so I went to the other side of the garden just so I could do a quick sign off. I hope you can hear me okay. So it is definitely a little bit overwhelming, but in a good way, to be cleaning all of this up, saying goodbye to the summer garden, and at the same time starting a bunch of seeds and trying to get some transplants out for the fall. But I hope you enjoyed this look at our garden. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye friends, happy growing.